Mount Bletchley is, I believe, legendary in the world of roads, transport, livability. Share the future with us, Don.
All right, thank you, Mara. I'll just adjust the microphone as we go and hopefully it'll keep working. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Don. Thank you. It's all right. Look, I used to be a teacher once, so look, these things come back to me, right? Yes, thank you. Pay attention and you'll get a question shortly. Panel, please pay attention. You too will get questions, right? I've always wanted to throw it past to Brendan Moon on the wing, right? For those who remember, Brendan was an Australian winger of renown within it, so we'll deal with those ones. No hospital passes, right, okay. Right, and as I came in this morning, I ran into one of my former work colleagues, and the first thing she said to me is, "You've aged." I said, "Yes, well look, I'm old enough to remember the 1974 floods. I also worked through the 2011 floods and Cyclone Yasi, so show of hands for flood veterans in the room." Okay, so what was yesterday, the rest of those people? Can you remember? Yasi anniversary, right, so think back. Right, and I've got to find my clicker here to do the next bit in terms of slides, right? Let's hope this works. Right, camera, did it work? Not working, so you guys, can you press that? Oh, hang on, if I turn it around the other way, it might work, right? Guys, can you do the next one for me, thanks? Okay, think back 5 years ago, right? No, thank Emma also for the segue into this environment. When we're dealing with floods, fire and activities, were we putting customers first? Were we unleashing our potential? Were we courageous, right? Were we putting ideas into action? And were we empowering people? Gee, it was great. We broke every rule in the book and got the job done, right? I think we actually wrote those values on the go and lived them and produced. And what we've done from there is we've taken them further because we've actually started to look at this other bit about inspiring, create and be innovative. So we've now got the wherewithal to come here today to talk about what would happen if this occurred again in the future. So let's go to the next slide, thanks. Right. Okay, if we also say, how does this link to our government's objectives? Well, if we sit there and look at this and really put it into perspective, I actually think we're sitting here doing stuff, building better, safe communities. We're actually encouraging thought, we're encouraging potential, and we're also starting to plan well into the future, right? So we're really starting to think and live these particular objectives as well. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so what do transport systems do? So how many transport planners are there in the room? Great, I can say anything. Right, okay, this is good. Okay, so they're just some metrics about the size of what my department looks after. Right, so 33,500 kilometres of roads. Well, Brendan will quote the stats for us in 10-11, right? We had 7,000 or so of those kilometres impacted, right? So a fair bit of our network was taken out, lots of rebuilding. In terms of the vehicles and things that work on the system, that use the system, lots of those. But the fundamental fact of a transport system is it moves freight and it moves people. It shifts stuff. If you haven't got something there to move, or allow it to move, it doesn't work well. So what happens when we start to go forward? Let's go to the next one. Some people think that's congestion, right? That's what we expect every time we get on our transport system. A lovely road, 8 lanes, right? In terms of what happens, busway built into it. It's really free flowing and it's a pleasure to use. Let's go next one. River cities, right? Some people don't like the Riverside Expressway. A couple of years' time it'll be built over the top of with new developments on North Quay, right? But you know, that's a good look at our city in terms of a normal day. Let's go to the next one, thanks. Isn't it great that we can ride around most days in our city, right? And enjoy a really great lifestyle. It's fantastic, right? Right, so how many people here are into fitness? Okay, how's your Fitbit going? 10,000 steps per day? So what do you think it's going to happen in the year 2036 for your transport system? Let's go to the next one, thanks. Okay, so I've had a long history in not actually building roads, but actually working in passenger transport. So my objective is for the year 2036, we're going to rely a lot more on our passenger transport system to move us around. A lot more usage of buses, trains, other movement devices. Right, so we're going to have a emphasis on healthier living, walking and cycling. We ain't going to be doing 10,000 steps per day, it'll be 20,000. So who averages 20,000 here? Oh, that's excellent, right? Who's up to 7.5? Oh, who's hitting 10? We've got a long way to go, haven't we? Right, okay. George just reminded me, when I actually am a graduate of this university, but it was QIT in those days. And my lecturer in social psychology said, geez, Don, we've got a real problem coming up. As we get older and technology arrives on the scene, the job you're doing now, you can do in 2 or 3 days. You're going to have so much leisure time. You really have to find a way of filling it in. So I said, good, thank you, Dr. Hicks. I'll remember that. So can we please ask, whatever happened to the less intense lifestyle that I had? Can I please return to 9 to 5 environment, right? Wouldn't it be fantastic? But our life will be different, right? We will live and work more locally than what we do. 40 years ago, we had regional offices in Ipswich. I expect in the next 20 years, we'll have a lot more regional offices spread right throughout our southeast network. Not so much CBD based, right? Right, service hours, 9 till 11, right? Once it was great to work 9 to 5, but if we're going to be internationally competitive, we've really got to gear up the way we deliver services. It will be a longer service day. We will double shift, we'll do all sorts of things, but it will be different, right? I've gone so far as to suggest we'll probably do some partial schooling from home because the technology will allow us to do so. We'll change what we do there. We'll always see a continuing change in the way we shop, and the last people spoke about how our fridge will tell us what to do and a whole range of things. But think about it now, who gets an email from Flybuys or Woolies or someone every day? People do? Yep, I get my reminder every day just about, hey Don, come and shop down at your local Coles and we'll save you $20 off these regular items that you buy. Right? Why do I need to go? Is it going to be delivered to home? Who went to the Boxing Day sales? Right, why? Right? Routine, yeah, that's what we always do, a whole range of things. If you know the style and the size that you are, and most people usually don't change dramatically in terms of size, all you want to know is, I like that colour, and I'd probably prefer to see it for myself rather than on the net. Well, why do they need to stock 6,000 shirts? Can they only need to stock one of each? You go up, you swipe your card, it's ordered, it's delivered to home. And if your pants need to be altered, they'll know exactly what length to deal with. It'll all be pre-done, pre-delivered. So, all these things will change the way things happen, but also will have a big impact on what happens in your transport system. What happens locally, your distribution networks. Urban congestion is likely to be there, right? So, technology, it will have a big impact, and the high reliance on solar power and battery technology. Right, so who's got a solar system on the roof? Okay, 5 kilowatt or kilovolt, yeah, whatever. Yeah, about that, yeah. All right, I reckon I'm going for 15 with a battery pack, right? So that I've got a lot more capability and capacity to sustain my lifestyle, right? That's if I'm still working and alive, Ian, right, by the time that happens, right? Okay, so what does this mean for us, right, as we go further forward? It also means that we've got intelligent highway systems. Some of the stuff we spoke about before, yes, that will be the case. We've already got them now, we can monitor, we can check on flows, we can do a whole range of things, but we'll have a lot more interactivity between the vehicles and the systems. That's dependent upon us rolling out the technology, of course. We can do it, but will it be everywhere or just selectively? Okay, so we will have lovely things such as electrically powered buses and cars. Right? I suspect if I'm still driving, I might be charging my vehicle up at home overnight, right, off the batteries that are in my shed instead of my tools. Right? We will see driverless vehicles. Yes, we'll have a cross-river rail connection, right, within that space. We'll also have additional pedestrian bridges. I reckon we could do with about 3 or 4, but we'll go for about 3 in the system. We'll have a really good cycle network, high-speed cycle network. There'll be some form of inner-city people mover in terms of how we shift. They're lovely words for either a rubber-tired tram or a tram on tracks or whatever within it. But we'll have increased localised services to support the way we live and work locally. We'll have changes to freight movement and distribution patterns. And for those who live at Cooperoo, we will have built the bus station by then. Okay. It's only 20 years, it's all right, that's okay. That was another one of my former work colleagues asked me about that one this morning, so we'll say we'll put it in. Okay, so what do we know about these floods? Right, Michael's given us a really good scenario in terms of what happens. So it's going to progressively build through the Thursday. It's given us a New Year's Day present. What do people do on New Year's Day? Usually recover from the night before, yes, right, or whatever. But it's a non-working day, isn't it, right? You may be at leisure, right, in that less intensified society, George, right, okay? In terms of what we do. We actually will have a very short time frame to plan for this event. Our technology will be rattling, telling us, but we'll still have to say what's going on because it's going to be sporadic. It will be all over the place, right? It's in the holiday season, so the best part is no school. So we don't have the issues of getting kids to and from school unless someone has changed the school calendar by then, right? I don't think so, though. Inflows are downstream of the dam. We're going to see scenes of 2011. So has anyone seen or can remember that television footage of walls of water rolling across Grantham on January the 10th? Right, pretty graphic. We're going to see that, aren't we, Michael, in various places. We're going to see walls of water. So we're going to have people panicking. We're going to have different types of response, different types of ideas. Ways people will deal with it. We're going to have an impact somewhere between 74 and 1893. As I said, I can remember 74. I enjoyed quite a few days after that event rolling out wet carpet on Archerfield Aerodrome. Right, so my memories are what I've seen. But I've got to admit, 1893 was a bit before my time, right? So it's a bit hard to know or remember. We're going to see significant inundation of the Brisbane CBD, higher than 74. We're going to see impacts at QUT and UQ. I had to put in UQ because I went there too, right? But their sports fields at UQ are well underwater. They're going to see other parts start to rise around their business school. If the old Kindler Theatre was here, it may have been impacted under this flood event. And we're going to see potential impacts on the Brisbane River below the city. I couldn't quite figure it out. But where's the man from Brisbane Airport Corporation? You might be an island, right? You will be, yeah. Okay, we're going to see lots of things within it. We also know that we're not going to be able to get to Amberley Air Force Base, right? So we start to look back and feel for this. This is Goodna in 2011. People drive over that every day and don't realise there's a motorway and a railway line well below those flood levels. Next one, guys. Right. Coronation Drive and what was a restaurant. Next one, thanks. That's just outside here at the Goodwill Bridge in terms of where that water was, and just imagine where that river height is there to basically the walkway just over there. Right. Next one, thanks. Debris in the port of Brisbane. Now, where's our silting man? Right. Heaps of silt in the port. This will be the low-level event. Right. Debris floating out to the port. Changes in the river depth. Needs for resounding, checking the depths of the Brisbane River. Lots of impacts in terms of what does happen. So let's go to the next one. So 1974. No cultural centre. Only the start of the freeway development. But look where the water level is on the Victoria Bridge. Okay, and also how close is it to the deck of the freeway? Oh, North Quay. Next one, thanks. Mary Street, that's just down the road from my office. Right, lovely pond. Right. That also came right up basically to the back of the Myer Centre in Albert Street. Next one, thanks. And this is Royal on the Park, or Park Royal, just down the road. right? Significant inundation of all those hotels, apartment houses in those areas at the bottom of Margaret Street. Next one. Now, as I said, this one's a bit before me. This is 1893 Victoria Bridge that got washed away. Water level at that point is almost at the top of the wall at the Commissariat or at the top of William Street. Next one, thanks. That's Queen Street. Next one. And that's South Brisbane, the Deputy Premier's electorate. So that's South Bank, Merivale Street, the railway line, gone. Next one, thanks. So, flood impacts. Now, this might be a bit hard to see within it, but pink is the overall impacts of 1011, or 11th. Next one. Okay, we go to 74. You can see how far it's leaked out further across the system, mostly to the south of the river, not so much to the north. And 1893 is the next one, thanks. Okay, so we can see that extended further and it was deeper, right? And each time the hydrology had changed, because the building had changed, we changed the way we worked within the river catchment as well. So, questions to be learnt. I live at the Gap and on a hill, right? So I keep well out of the way of all these things. So David, I'm with you on those ones, right? So what's this going to look like if I impose the current transport network over the 1893 level? Next one, thanks. All those red lines just happen to be the bus routes, and there's trains in there, they're the dotted ones, and the major highways. I haven't done the secondary roads, right? As you can see, there's a lot of that system that's going to be impacted. So, Don's analysis of what may happen trying to live up to Mara's expectations that she's told you about, right? It's probably a technical term for this, right? And that's called, if it's flooded, forget it, right? Okay, so within all of that, let's go back. Yes, here we go, right. So, back one, boys. Next one, thank you. Okay, first of all, what came to mind when I thought back at 1011 and 74? The Rockley markets, they're underwater. If they haven't moved by then, they're gone. We're probably 20 feet over the tops of the sheds at the Rockley markets. So there goes our fresh fruit and veg supply out the door. We've got the closure of all major highways, north, south and to the west, progressively. Michael and I had a chat about it. We think we'll lose the roadworks around the Logan, right? We'll assume for the benefit of this, we will lose parts of Bay Desert Road and it could have an impact on the Pacific motorway travelling south. We will also see impacts to the north, so parts of Gateway around Lower Deegan, Flats, and to the north around the Pine River, likely impact gone, can't go north. We go west, we've already commented that we've lost the highway at Worrell View and also parts of Springfield. So we're landlocked, progressively over time, about 48 hours within that space. So that was a nice way of saying that we will have impacts in Moreton and Logan Council. We'll see the closure of Bowen Bridge Road, the inner city bypass and a selective number of other activities. As the Deputy Premier told us this morning, we'll also see the Gabba Five Ways will go under. Right? So significant impacts. Those who live in the Norman Creek catchment can remember what happens there on particular rainy days and stuff. Stones Corner's likely to be impacted. So unfortunately the Coorparoo bus station probably won't be working, right? Right, in terms of those things, right? We will see the closure of the suburban bus and rail network, and it'll progressively shut down as things get inundated. Right? Fortunately, we're in holiday period. Most of this will start to occur on a Friday. So therefore, our transport task will be different and it will be less in terms of how we return people. So we'll also see cancellation of other services across the network as we redesign our system to do the best we can. And we'll also, and the one that worries me, is we will see a major disruption to our freight distribution system, our stocking and restocking of stores. And I'll ask this question before we go to next slides. How many people have got more than 3 days worth of product in the fridge or in the cupboards at home to sustain you should the power go out or should something happen where you have to stay at home? 2 weeks. All right, okay, fine, okay. That was a good show of hands. So unless you've got a plan, Stan, you could be in real strife. Right, let's go to the next one. Okay. So as I see it, in the first 72 hours, we're going to see a lot of restricted travel. In fact, we may see our authorities say only essential travel, a bit like New York and the storms the other day with the snow. Only go out if you need to. We're going to see a significant closure of the CBD. Our buildings will not be all wired up for the new electricity supply, so lots of those supplies will be cut. For those living in apartments, it may be a challenge because you'll be on generator and hope you'll have enough power to keep you going for that period. Getting accurate situational awareness will be difficult because there'll be so much data to be sifted through what's happening where and when. Right. Assessment of other impacts in the state. I haven't got enough to know, is this just a localised Brisbane event, or have we got the summer of sorrows or summer of disasters happening at the same time? If it was in that case, it would be far more amplified because we could not fly material out of Amberley to other parts of the state. We cannot, under this scenario, get to the Gold Coast Airport, Brisbane Airport, North Coast Airport, Sunshine Coast Airport, or Wellcamp. We are stuck. We have a period of, I suppose, shutdown. We can helicopter stuff in, but unless we've got vertical takeoff landing craft, right, or aircraft in operation, we are pretty well, cactus is the right word, I think. Right? We will start to see grocery supply issues happen. Community recovery will be a key issue because of those people like Ian and I waiting for someone to come and service us, right? Because we'll be there. What's happening? What are we dealing? We'll also start to be planning for the reinstatement of our transport network as it comes back up to speed, but we'll also need to shift workers around and volunteers to help clean up the city. The Mud Army we saw in 10-11, well, let's just amplify that because it's a far bigger impact. We'll see what we have to do there. Okay, and the last one, thanks. It says thank you. All right, thank you.
That was wonderful, Don. Thank you so much. Please stay put. As I encourage our panel to reflect on what their comments might be, I thought I'd just flick one quick opportunity for reflection to the audience. We have Chris Slattery with us, and Chris, of course, is the head of strategy for Brisbane Airports Corporation, a facility which is well known to exceed adaptation, resilience, continuity standards, has won awards for that. How the runway is built in relation to anticipating sea level rise, many redundancies on water, energy and water, and yet it depends on the continuity of the rest of Brisbane to actually do things when things come through the airport. Chris, how do you begin to talk to other infrastructure providers and build this connectivity?
Thank you very much. Well, under emergency circumstances, it's all too late. So it's all about ensuring that the airport is resilient, and our target is resilience for the next 100 years, and it's certainly through our emergency and security departments within the airport that are working with other local disaster organisations, with certainly the Disaster Communication Coordination Centre, and there has to be certain level of arrangements. We're not completely independent from the need for potable water, for example, or power, but there are levels of priority if that, for example, the airport can be supported with, because we will participate in a disaster relief process. For example, when there's been Cyclone Yahtzee, we received aircraft, so that was a mechanism. New Zealand's Christchurch earthquake. Fundamentally, if you've got a infrastructure such as the airport, where we have 22,000 staff and 60,000 passengers moving through, all that infrastructure is managed by ourselves. It will be an island, and always has been an isolated mechanism, but communications is generally the key. And there's examples of that we need to further work on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you, Chris. And the reason I ask really is the world of infrastructure is a world of interdependency. Oh my goodness, please tell us who you are and share your thoughts.
From the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. We've heard the word resilience used a great deal in the discussions today, and certainly it was used by the Deputy Premier when she spoke there this morning. But I think we need to not just use that word, but think what we actually mean by resilience. So we've heard about in the impacts on safer communities, the benefits that are going to accrue in terms of providing information for people with the new technology. And Don has gone through in great detail there what the impacts will be on the critical infrastructure. If it's flooded, forget it. So what we need to do is to look at resilience that is actually more than just a slogan, but it's actually a strategy that we do something about. And we need to start doing something about it now if we're going to do something that is going to improve the situation in 2036. So if most of the major inflows into the Brisbane River system are below Wivenhoe, what are we doing about managing those more effectively and mitigating those impacts for 2036? If the Rockley markets are going to be cut off, what are we doing about relocating those? If Brisbane Airport is going to be becoming an island, what plans are afoot between now and 2036 to do something about that, so that I'm not suggesting that the public will be vitally interested in this on a day-to-day basis, but when it starts to affect them in January 2036, they will be exercised, and I think that's when the politicians and the communities really need to demonstrate that they have been looking after the interests of their community by taking timely action.
And perhaps we might even do that in advance of our politicians. Somehow, I think that is part of the secret. Are there any reflections? Please, Tony.
Mara, I'm going to be provocative, and you stole part of my question, so thank you for that. Sorry to my fellow presenter, Don, bollocks. The problem I have with what you just presented is we are assuming that the status quo of what we are doing now is going to continue for the next 20 years. Unfortunately, that is likely to happen, but I think we are missing a major opportunity to change the paradigm of the space we're in now to go partway down what your question answered. And that takes this word resilience, and I'm banging on about what I said before, away from just flood resilience to resilience in total. And I like, and James Judy, my colleague down the back, knows that the Healthier Waterways, we've been talking about the idea of resilient catchments. We have got to get ourselves some resilient catchments. If we get ourselves resilient catchments, we are going to go part way towards solving the flood problem. If we started tomorrow and started planting trees up in the Laidley and the Lockyer and the Bremer, in 20 years' time we would have densely vegetated riparian corridors along those streams that would pull the flood levels in the Brisbane River down by something like half a metre. Don't quote me on the exact number, but we know it works, right? And it delays the flood peak, it stops the sediments coming down. If we build our resources, our water resources, to be more resilient, if all those extra million people we get coming into southeast Queensland have rainwater tanks and have recycled water systems, they're not needing as much water. Hence, sorry Michael, we can probably draw Wivenhoe Dam down a little bit lower before the flood season and have some more storage in there. There's a shed load of this stuff we could be and should be doing and starting now, so by the time we get to 2036 and this event happens, it's a different event. We're not just maintaining the status quo. And the last thing I'm going to say is, and we've got to realise, and I've banged on about the sediment thing, the Port of Brisbane is going to be stuffed in about another 30 or 40 years unless we close off the sediment that's coming out into Moreton Bay. It will have nowhere to put its dredging spoil. It will have to be taking it right out to sea off Moreton Island because, you know, all of the supply, all of the places to put it within Moreton Bay are going to be full. There are some really serious time bombs ticking here that we've got to try and manage. And if we do it holistically, we can have a resilient system that's got floodplains, water resources and water quality. And we'll clean up the Brisbane River too. There you go.
Okay,
Steak
I'm going
knives as
to,
well if you want.
lots of passion in the room. I can sense it in people's eyes. I'm going to keep us going into the coffee break, which really is not a coffee break. It's going to be 10 minutes to stretch. Be wary of the coffee, actually. So, you know, come back. I'd like to segue now to Herman, if I might, because I do believe in my world, in the world of the economists in the room, there are these things called no regrets options. These things that are incremental that we can do that build our capacity and resilience without necessarily having the big capital investment that might not be in quite the right place. Herman, you're visiting us. What is your sense of the small and bigger ideas that we can gradually do to build this resilience that we talk about, which clearly is a collaborative endeavor?
That's not a really easy question, but I think I go along with the ideas that were proposed by Tony. If you have a vision that you want to be a more sustainable catchment, then you can do a lot of steps, I think. First of all, make sure that you're not going to further develop in the most riskiest places, so limit development in floodplains. You could restore and maintain the natural capacity to regulate floods. I think also the early warning and systems could be maybe further improved, and have also flood risk management plans available. Well, these are, I think, a number of things that can be done to at least reduce the impacts and really make the change to a more resilient system.
Well, fantastic, and we'll hear a bit more from Herman. Just in passing, can I reflect, we're about to hop up for a 10-minute stretch break. The reason why during this morning session there was an announcement that CSI Rose is about to cut another 300 jobs, this time out of the climate and land and water divisions, is because as a society we have not yet learned how to value natural capital. And once we do, our kids will look back and realize how silly we were. And the good news is, the National Australia Bank is actually leading that program globally. And once we have a dollar sign, not only around the greenhouse issue, but around trees, wetlands, catchments that will make us more secure and make our places of living and playing more livable, will we have an intelligent conversation that closes this loop. So anyway, enjoy your stretch. Sorry about that last little thing, but I just thought I'd share.